So let's begin the story at, if you could, in your own words, describe what is Tech Amigos.
Okay. So Tech Amigos, we started back in 2018 and with a primary mission to help small and medium businesses with two things. One was cloud adoption. So everybody is wanting to go onto cloud. Everybody want to do it in an organized way. There is not enough expertise out there to help you choose what cloud services are right for you. So all of that cloud adoption is the first part, and the second part is developer productivity, because lots of small businesses are now trying to create technology teams, and they have limited budget, so their obvious spend is on getting the right expertise from programming point of view. So they get lots of software developers who are really good at what they do, but when it comes to deploying that software that they're writing onto cloud, the whole process is not efficient, and these developers who are really good at developing software are ending up spending a lot of time fixing what they call as pipelines, which is the stuff that you use to deploy your code onto cloud. So those were the two kind of big areas that we saw opportunity in, and we thought, okay, let's try and help these customers out there. That's how kind of Tech Amigos was born. And soon we realized, I think one of the things that's it's in our DNA is giving value to our customers. So I come from a consulting background, so I did consulting for about 15 years, worked for big multinational clients, and I know that you could demand a lot of kind of day rate type of arrangements in consultancies, but we wanted to build something different, because we are thinking that these small and medium businesses shouldn't be really penalized by high consultancy rates, and they should be given the expertise that they deserve. And that's where we started off saying, okay, we have got all of these years of experience, and if we were to use that and deliver these people very fixed outcomes, then it's really a differentiating proposition than selling consulting services. So that's where I think with Tech Amigos, solving these two problems in a slightly different way, going into client, agreeing, doing a little bit of discovery, agreeing what their pain points are, and then solving them by way of defining their outcome, and then pricing that outcome and delivering that as a fixed price service.
At what stage in which someone is developing their software, for example, what's the most suitable stage for someone to come to Tech Amigos to move them onto the cloud?
I think it could be two different stages. So somebody could be just moving on to cloud, and they haven't really got, they know that they want to move to cloud, but they haven't really thought through the strategy. They haven't chosen the cloud services that they want to use. So they could come to us at that point, and we help them with designing what we call as cloud native architecture. So we come up with we try and understand what their product is, what their services are, and suggest them the best cloud native technologies that can solve that problem. And then, having given the design, we also help them deploy those things on cloud. So that's the first category of customers who are pretty new to cloud, and they're really looking for help, someone to come in, show them the way basically, and then help them deliver on that journey. Or there could be other set of customers who are kind of gone onto cloud. They have been on cloud for a couple of months, and they have started seeing the problems. And typical problems that people see are their cloud bills start going up because they thought that they're moving from on-prem to cloud to save costs, but in reality, after 4 or 5 months, cloud cost shoots up. So that's one of the problems. Or they have some security breaches because their setup is not done in a right way. So they typically then need help to come in and say, okay, I've got a bit of this cloud legacy that I have built on my own, and I have got all of these problems. Can you come and help solve that? So those are the typical two types of clients that come to us.
You'll know as well as any other founder out there, they're doing 1,000,001 different jobs. What would you say to someone who's out there running their business who has never even considered going onto cloud? Why would someone do that? What are the advantages in going from on-prem to cloud?
I think if cloud is done right, you immediately have cost benefit, because cloud works on a pay per use model. So if you don't need your 10 servers running 24/7, you could say, okay, I'll only run one server 9 to 5, and if I've got a lot of traffic to my website, then I automatically spin up the second one, and once the traffic goes down, I can switch that off. So I think the elasticity of cloud computing is the main benefit, and you end up saving a lot of cost that way. But again, I must stress that all of this is possible only if the cloud environment is set up correctly and optimally. Because so that's, I think, one big reason why somebody should consider cloud.
Is the pay-per-use aspect of cloud computing why, if somebody doesn't optimize correctly when integrating with it, it can be drastically consequential to how much they're spending?
Exactly. Yeah. Because in order to set the elasticity up in cloud, you have to define the policies, define the rules on that cloud setup. And if you haven't defined those rules correctly, your servers won't scale in or scale out as per demand. And then sometimes you might notice that you have scaled out your servers, and which means that you're still paying for a lot more computing power than what you don't need.
From Tech Amigos' perspective, is your product something that sticks with a company from the moment they integrate with the cloud forever, or do you come in for a particular time frame and then get out?
Yeah, so I think again there are two models there. So one model is we always start with what we call as infrastructure as code first. So we don't do any cloud provisioning without writing what we call as Terraform code. So Terraform is a language that you use to provision cloud resources. So we write code first, and everything that we set up for a customer on cloud is all held as code in their source code control repositories. In our offering, we do that piece of code, that IP is theirs, we leave the code with them, and if they prefer to run with that code going forward, and if one of their developers are keen enough to try and manage that code going forward, then our involvement ends there, and we are still happy to be on end of the phone or end of the Slack channel for them to help with their inquiries, and that we call as kind of a support model, where we just are available when they need us. Or the converged other model is we do all of this setup and we end up managing that code for them. We become part of their sprint teams, and we try and kind of enhance their cloud setup as they go along.
We talked a little bit about cost optimization from going to the cloud from a hardware setup, but what other benefits are easily attainable from changing your product setup to integrating with something like AWS?
Another is speed of delivery. I think lots of small and medium businesses are looking at creating prototypes or creating some quick tests for their product offering, and where cloud pays off really well is in terms of agility. So if you want to develop a small idea, quickly test it in the market, quickly test with the users, learn from that quickly, then all of that can be achieved very easily with cloud, because you are able to spin up these resources, deploy your application, take it down when you're done with their testing, and off we go. It's much easier to adopt cloud than to set up kind of on-prem servers or any other compute.
I see, right. So the agility of the product grows with the platform.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've got, 15 years of experience in this field. Then you've spent 2 years building a very powerful product. Are you going to let investors in on this journey as you continue to grow?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that taught us in first 3 years of our business is we are ending up doing same things for our clients. So everybody wanted to go on cloud, everybody wanted to set up a Kubernetes cluster, everybody wanted to set up a database. So all of those were very common things that everybody wanted. And over a period of first 3 years of our business, we kind of created these as patterns. So instead of we going into client and delivering same thing over and over again, we tried to codify that. And we said that, okay, if these patterns exist, then we can go to our next client and only do 20% tweaking. So what we call that as 80-20 rule, because we believe that most of the clients have 80% of common things, and it's only 20% is bespoke that everybody needs. So we spend a lot of effort on that 80%, trying to codify that, trying to test it and make sure that it's solid. And we only work for remaining 20% of the bespoke services that we need to do. Now, when we did that, it was a natural progression from taking these patterns and converting that into a product. And these days, I think integrated developer platforms are are the things that all developers want and need, because they don't want to rely on a cloud team or a cloud engineer to help them set up things. They want to have self-service platforms where they could just go to a platform and ask for these cloud resources. So what we have built now is taken those patterns and created that as a developer platform, which can become self-service. And obviously we have a long road to go there. We have just made the start on that journey, and that's where, yes, at appropriate time we would be looking for some funding to take that kind of journey to the next level.
Nice. So in essence, that's a person who's working for a company who's in the process of integrating with the cloud, using TechAmigos product to help them manage that process, make sure the outcome is correct.
Yes.
We've spoken a little bit about the intimidating factor of the AWS dashboard, where you just log in and, well, the possibilities are endless. Can you talk to me a little bit about how ensuring the outcome of your processes is so essential for the companies that you work with? Or in other words, how badly wrong things can go if it's done incorrectly?
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting one, because we have seen it in more than many clients. We have seen this for many clients, that typical model is CTO would typically put their credit card behind AWS, and they would say to their team, look, I've subscribed to AWS, now go and set things up. And what typically happens then is all of these developers, or who are the engineers are, where obviously everybody's excited about getting new things done and everybody wants to do the right things, but the easiest thing to do for anybody is to go to the console and press some buttons, because AWS have made the console quite easy to use, and you can spin up a server just by pressing few buttons. But what they don't realize is they are creating all of these resources in an unorganized fashion, because if I go in today, I create a couple of servers, come in tomorrow, I create a couple more servers, but I have forgotten the fact that now I've created 6 to 8 servers here, and I don't know which server is doing what are the security policies attached to them, are they secure, are they open to the world, can somebody abuse them? So all of that is an afterthought for most companies. So, and the unfortunate way they find out is either by their cost going up and then somebody questioning is, why are we running 10 servers when we need only 2? Or somebody has a security breach, their customer finds out about something, there's a data leakage problem. So what we are trying to say is all of these are kind of after effects of you not doing things in organized way. So why don't you start doing things in organized way from day one? And which is where one of the ethos that we again have with all of our clients is we never use the console. We always use the code to provision all the resources. And what that means is if somebody wants to review our code before we run it on the account, people can very clearly see what are the various resources that are going to get spun up and what is the cost associated with what we're going to provision. So it's a bit more organized, bit more planned, as opposed to just clicking few buttons on the console.
When a company is using AWS and they've got their servers running, is there any easy way they can get a gauge of their optimization level? Or in other words, if they don't know which servers are doing which, and let's say there's been some mistakes or some kind of inefficiencies while they've been setting up, they don't know how much less it could be. Does TechAmigos help companies understand their level of optimization for existing cloud integration setups?
Yes, I think FinOps is a big area these days, where most companies are talking about FinOps, which is effectively trying to optimize your cloud spend. And there are n number of products in this space. There are lots of SaaS products which can connect to your AWS account and make some suggestions saying, do this, do this, do this, and you will save some money. AWS themselves have got cost optimizer tools that you can run on your account to try and find out where you can make the savings. But I think the problem that most of the businesses have is not so much about finding out where the cost optimization can be done, but actually going ahead and doing those cost optimizations. So what we have come up with about 6 to 8 months ago is a service called Optimigo, which is our way of optimizing cloud spend. And what we do is one of our amigos would work with the client, find out all of these optimization opportunities using AWS tools and these other SaaS tools, but then going next level and saying, okay, these are the various optimizations we could do. These are the risky ones that we might want to do later. These are the easy wins that we can do now. There are some things which are not even being used. For example, dev environments, which are not as risky to try and optimize. So we do some of those initial optimizations for the client with a guarantee that we can save them some money in their next billing cycle. And if we don't end up saving any money, we don't charge any fees. If we end up saving money, then we just take a small percentage of the savings we have made for them. So it works in everybody's favor, and that helps us prove to our clients who don't know us that we have the know-how, we have the skills, and we can help them with cost optimization.
Just ultimate confidence. You're not charging unless you do the job you're saying your tool can do. And
correct.
I don't know if to describe Tech Amigos as a team of people or a product here. I know it's in its infancy as a product, and I think people will be excited to see it as a product.
Is the reason that is the move to product because obviously the work that you're doing is very much akin to consultancy, but I assume there's scale issues in that. Is that the idea? So create something that will allow you to provide your services to a wider audience at the same time?
Yes. I think scale is definitely one of the considerations. Is to, we have only limited number of amigos. We can't be there everywhere for all our clients. So we are trying to use our product as kind of a tool that clients could self-serve themselves. But the other area is looking at where the industry is going, and there always been for last 8 to 10 years since the cloud has become in mainstream. There has always been kind of a developer camp and a cloud engineering camp, and there always has been a wall between both of them. So if as a developer I'm developing some code, when it comes to deploying it, I just throw it across the wall and say one of my cloud engineers could sort that out. And that mentality is not really good in terms of speed of software delivery, agility, quality. All of those good things that we talk about software development can't happen if developer is not empowered to do some of these things themselves. And that's where the notion of self-service developer platforms is becoming more and more prevalent. And we want to try and help with kind of that side of area of delivering developers with that freedom, with that self-service attitude, where they could just come to this well-designed, well-architected platform where they could just request things and get their software running on cloud.
And most importantly, when they do request it, because they are templates, patterns, I know you call them patterns, they have a greater chance of getting the outcome they desire.
Yes, and those are tested patterns. So they don't go through this journey of, I have developed something, now I have to test it and then deploy it. They can just start using that because this platform has baked in all of those patterns that contains years of our experience, and we have already trialed these things in our labs, so people can just start using them.
You've suffered already for them.
Exactly.
You're in the product side of things. I mean, you're an engineer, aren't you, by trade? Mm-hmm. You've spent your time in the trenches building this product. Now, of course, as a co-founder, you've got to start messaging and creating the values to your market. But ignoring the customer for a second, do you have a favorite part of the product you're building, something that really kind of floats your boat, that isn't necessarily something that's acknowledged by your consumer base, but that you're particularly proud of or that you particularly enjoy, that you've maybe overcome in the last few years?
Yeah, there's several actually, but one of them is what I'm finding more and more in the cloud space. So I don't know if you come across CNCF, so that's the Cloud Native Foundation, who are the authority in the cloud space, saying which tooling should people be used, and what's available out there. And if you look at the CNCF landscape, it's a huge picture that very, very hard to decipher, and there are dozens of tools trying to do something similar. So one of the things that people have an issue with at the moment is selecting the right tool for the right job and stringing all of those tools together to make up a tool chain, as they call it. And the best part that I like about what we are doing is we are not really interested in reinventing another tool and creating another one of those dozen tools that are already on the market. What we really feel is gluing these tools together to create that productive developer workflow. Mm-hmm. And when I see lots of our tools that we have kind of strung together, and if developer uses those tools, they they immediately see the benefit. So the moment I push my code to GitHub, if there is something that can pick that code up, build it up, unit test it automatically, package it, deploy it to cloud, and all of these things are being done by a variety of different tools. But what we have built is the glue that goes between these tools, and it's really satisfying to see when end to end release happens in less than an hour or whatever it might be. And that's what kind of charges us up and say, okay, this is what we are kind of doing this product for, is to try and help those developers solve their day-to-day problems, but also introduce that productivity in their day-to-day kind of software development lifecycle.
Nice.
Do you find that you are having to educate people to want to use your services, or do you find that they're coming to you organically, i.e. we need your services, can Tech Amigos help?
There's a lot of education element, to be honest, and I think that's especially again very relevant to our market segment, which is small and medium businesses, who for them IT is not their main focus. So if you go to a bank, for example, they've got huge budgets to try and fund big IT projects, hire good IT skills. But when you go to a small and medium enterprise, their main business is to sell their product or their service. Their main business is not to worry about their IT. And because of that, they're not as conversant with cloud technology as some of the tech houses or some of the big companies would be. So there is an element of that education that we need to talk through to them and give them examples, or maybe most of the times I think we do what we call as proof of concepts with them. So again, one of the pre-sales kind of activity we do is free discovery workshops, which means that we would spend a couple of hours with a prospective client without charging them any fees. But at that same time, what we do in those 2 hours is to try and understand where their main pain points are and try and represent them back to them and try and replay it back to them and make sure that they understand that our services are going to solve a specific problem, as opposed to we being another set of consultants coming in and trying to give them some advice. Because our motive is not to just stop at the advice stage. Our motive is to give the advice, do the work, and make sure that customer realizes the benefit of our service, rather than just giving them some PowerPoint presentations with our advice.
So you want to be there for the long term for the customer, not just come in, do a job and leave.
Correct. Yeah.
Is it, you correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's a bad analogy, but it seems like you're in a similar position to someone like Zapier. I don't know if you're familiar with Zapier, but Zapier is working to help product managers automate. I say it as if it's just launched. It's huge now, and they've been around for a few years. But when Zapier first came along, the web tools existed already: form builders, Google Drive, Outlook, email, all individual tools, and none of them needed to be reinvented. But Zapier came along and made it easy for people who weren't developers to start to increase the power of each one of those tools by linking them together. Yeah. And then what was weird is that as soon as the consumer base understood Zapier, really the power of Zapier is in the imagination of whoever's using it. Mm-hmm. Because now you have this set of tools available to you, and you decide as a company how you want to piece these things together to optimize a product better than the competitors. Mm-hmm. Is that a little bit like Tech Amigos, but for cloud integration? Would it be fair to describe you as a kind of automator of cloud integration technologies, webbing them together, gluing them together? You did describe it as glue, right? Yeah. You allow them to function in an ecosystem as opposed to as individual programs.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I think, compare ourselves with what you just described around Zapier. I think there's no direct correlation in that sense, but if I just take a step back and say, what are our personas that we help with? So we help with 3 personas within business. So one is kind of CTO level people who are more interested in cloud strategy, cloud spend, cloud architecture. So we help that persona by giving them a very optimized cloud setup, a very well-defined cloud native choices to say what technologies or what services they can use, and to give them a very clear cloud reference architecture to help them say to their teams that, okay, we are going on to cloud, this is the strategy and this is where we are going. The second persona that we help with is head of engineering, whose role typically is to make sure that there is a lot of pressure from business to go faster, and head of engineering are really kind of every head of engineering is trying to create capabilities where their developers would be very efficient, because they have got a lot of pressure from their product owners who come in and say, we want to have these 2 weekly releases, we want to get this feature out by this date. And head of engineering's job is to try and make sure that although they were running fast, they're not cutting any corners around software quality and software delivery. And to match this, I think some of the tooling that we help them set up is like code quality concerns, or unit test executions. So head of engineering is one of our personas which can benefit from what we do, is by getting that kind of a overarching view of their software development process and identifying where the bottlenecks are, and help them solve those bottlenecks, and help them go faster without compromising on quality. And the third persona that we help with is developers themselves. So developers are coming along and saying that, okay, I do really good Python code for my backend, I do really good JavaScript coding for my front end, but when I come to deploy all of this on cloud, I'm struggling because my cloud engineer takes long time to either provision stuff or deliver stuff. So that's where I think we are helping those third set of personas to say that, okay, we are giving you all of that starting points that you can build your software on, and then we make it pretty transparent for them, so they can look into this setup themselves and extend that if they need. So just as one example, I think we have recently introduced or done some work with one of the clients using GitHub Actions. So developers are very close to GitHub. They know, they push code to GitHub all the time. And what they really need is some set of kind of CI/CD pipelines built using GitHub Action, because that's their tool of choice. And with our patterns, we go in and we give them a starter for 10, and they could use that. They could take that and they extend it going forward. So those become our kind of third set of personas. So to come back to your kind of Zapier point, we are helping all of these different personas to do their own area within the cloud adoption. Okay. So not really stringing, but giving them kind of a view into what they are interested in.
So it's not each tool isn't speaking to Tech Amigos, who then speaks to the next tool. You're optimizing each tool individually so that they work cohesively together.
Exactly. And have it as a end-to-end kind of streamlined developer process, which everybody has got a view into. So nice. CTO can look at what they need, head of engineering can look at what they need, and developer can go even further and they look at lowest level of details.
I'm wondering, you've mentioned investment, and I just wondered whether you had identified what type of investment you would like Tech Amigos to obtain, whether it's crowdfunded, it's from a VC, private equity. And I just wondered if you'd identified that, and if so, why you'd gone down that road. Or
yeah, I think at the moment we are exploring our own network, and I think I've been fortunate enough that within kind of throughout my career I have kind of build some relationships, either by working at previous jobs or with our customers, with our clients from past. And due to that network, I already have got some access to some of those funding options. So I think my initial aim is to try and explore those options and see if whether something comes up there. And if not, then yes, we'll probably go out to private equity or VCs.
Nice. Tech Amigos is going to be a tool that developers use. You're an engineer yourself. I wondered if you have any favorite tools that you've been using in the development of Tech Amigos that you want to give a shout out to or alert other people to. Some of your favorite things that you use on a daily basis or a weekly basis.
Yeah. I think Terraform is something that we use a lot, and I feel that that's a really good kind of capability that's out there for developers to tap into. And as a developer, I believe that I used to be a Java developer in my early career, but when I started coding in Terraform, I do find concepts quite similar. There is a good amount of documentation there. There is good amount of community that's built around it. So if you are stuck, there are lots of people who you can look out for help. So Terraform is, I think, definitely a tool of choice that I have when it comes to infrastructure provisioning. There is a big movement around GitOps at the moment, where people are trying to move away from what they call as imperative pipelines to more of a declarative syntax. So instead of you defining your pipeline in a script, what you could do is you could say, I put all my configuration in GitHub, and there is a tool that sits in between, which is taking that config from GitHub and deploying it on cloud and making it a reality. So that tool is constantly syncing your config held in GitHub with the actual resources running on cloud. And there are lots of tools in the market doing GitOps, but one of the favorite ones that we have is Argo CD. And in fact, I run a kind of a LinkedIn group for Argo CD, and there's so much enthusiasm there that we've got about a group with about 900 people already in it in last 3 months. So it is taking off, and that's the kind of area to watch out for. Is lots of people are trying to move away from those kind of imperative pipelines to more of a declarative world.
Brilliant. They're going to love it when we comment and share with the group, and people are always interested to find new technologies. Let's pause there, find out the time. How long are we in?
We're at 35 minutes in.
35 minutes. Like I said, the cameras and the mics, this all gets cut out, so no one can see what I'm doing in the final episode. It's a good time for me to ask you if there's anything that strikes you that we're not touching on, areas of conversation that you want to, because you've done a great job of explaining. I understand, I think, what you're doing, and it's gangster. So yeah, is there anything that you want us to mention, bring into the conversation before we wrap up?
I think the big area that's on my mind today is everybody is talking about innovation. Everybody is talking about AI. And one of the things that I think is lacking in some of these businesses that we work with is a strategy for AI, and not jumping on the bandwagon, because most of the people are saying, we want to do AI.
So I imagine a lot of people are coming to you because of this AI bandwagon and saying, well, what do you offer that's AI?
Correct. And my point is, you don't do AI for sake of doing AI. You really need to find out what the problems that you're trying to solve, and are there a genuine use cases where your life could be made easier by AI. So one of the examples is, whenever a release goes out, most of the product managers would like to see whether there were any issues with the releases, or has the kind of amount of errors that are logged, have they gone up because of the release? And some of those use cases can very easily be tackled using AI, because AI can model what your steady state looks like, and suddenly a release has gone in and your steady state has changed. So if an AI model could make a distinction between your steady state and something else has happened, then that could start notifying the right people to say something is not right here. And I think there are tools. So we are also partnered with one of the CD tool called Harness, and Harness has embedded this AI mechanism years ago in their tool, where they effectively roll back a particular deployment if they start finding these anomalies. So they have written an engine which says that I know what the steady state looks like. You have recently done a deployment and suddenly the errors have gone up. So it tells me that something is not right. So I'm going to roll back to the last known good version of your software. And that's where I think is the power of AI, is to try and find out what those real use cases are and what can make your life easier. And just on a side note, I think one of the things we haven't talked about yet is, even with Tech Amigos, I think we have what we call as Tech Amigos labs. And in the labs, we constantly trial new technology, because then if a client comes to us, then we already have some answers, some credible answers to give them. And as part of that, we are also exploring some B2C type of offerings. And that to me is, innovation shouldn't really stop at any boundary. So if for last 5 years, if we have said we are a B2B company and we help customers with their cloud adoption, if we find something else which is innovative and people are needing help in that area, then pivoting that business model or trying to change the offering slightly is also innovation in my book. So
What ideas have you had that would bring cloud directly to a consumer as opposed to a business?
I think one of the things we are again trialing, and I can't talk much about that product, but we are working on a kind of a wearable device with the intention that we want to make AI really accessible to users, because in today's model, if I want to use ChatGPT, for example, I still have to go log into ChatGPT, submit my questions, write the right prompts to get the right results, and all of this is still very technical. So if you ask somebody who is non-technical to do all of this, it's quite overwhelming. So although the technology exists, I still feel that it's not accessible. So we are trying to work on some wearable devices which can make this technology accessible to general public, and where you might be able to benefit from some of these AI work that's happening in the background without having too much of technology knowledge.
So so I make sure I understand correctly, you're saying that there is power for AI to be used in cloud configurations, but really more as a diagnostic tool as opposed to an implementation tool.
For now, yes. It is diagnostic mainly, and implementation, I think, yes, you can use AI to kind of deliver your services, but I don't think we are there yet where we can completely automate and
But like you were giving the example of the tool you were saying has a sense of steady state, and then it can give you a heads up if an update has meant that the configuration has changed or things aren't running quite right.
Yeah.
And you're using AI for that aspect, but then the actions taken to fix that steady state disruption, you wouldn't recommend necessarily implemented by AI.
Not at this point, because
okay, so you've got high ambitions for the future of AI. You think it's going into the route of being able to manage those?
It's going in the right direction, but I don't believe that we are there yet in terms of letting AI take those remedial actions.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, because I'm sure those watching this might wonder, what could be easier than logging onto a website and asking a question? Because you describe that as potentially being prohibitive, but I'm not sure in my use of a computer what less there is one can do to use something.
So I think there are voice technologies. So you could have a wearable and you could talk to that wearable. You could have kind of projection technologies which can project stuff. You ask a question and it gives you feedback either by way of projection or by way of sound.
Very interesting. Sounds very Black Mirror.
Didn't give anything away, just enough to get us interested. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I think that was really nice, and I get why you included that bit. Cool. That's great.
Do we want to touch on any pricing? I mean, you touched on your sort of the crude version of saying it is like sort of like a no-win, no-fee. So you come in, do your FinOps, you take a percentage of the money you save. That's obviously one pricing strategy you've gone with. Do you want to talk about your other pricing models and strategies for the rest of your offerings?
Yeah, so that's OptiAmigo is one where it's free upfront. The second model we have is the outcome based that I mentioned, where we kind of undertake a free discovery workshop, and what comes out of that workshop is a very well defined description of what the problem statement is and what the solution is and what the outcome that client would get should they go with us, and that comes as a fixed price with a fixed timing. So that's the second kind of model. The third model, which is not live yet, but the product that I was talking about, which is the developer platform, that could come at like a subscription-based model where people might be able to pay like a very small monthly subscription fee and get access to that self-service developer platform.
Is there a profile of company that's set to benefit most from the second pricing profile you're talking about? Working with Tech Amigos, is there a type of company typically of a size and of an age which is set to benefit most from optimizing their cloud integration, or is it pretty much any company over a certain size?
So I think what we typically target is S and M from kind of SME definition. So we don't believe that one man or initial startup companies would benefit as much with the second option. They might benefit with the first one, where we'll just help them to get going. But the typical companies that benefit are kind of medium-sized companies. I would say roughly about 200 to 250 people in the company, with their IT setup not more than 15-20 people. They have got their own e-commerce platform or something similar in cloud, and those are the companies who are wanting to create new features on their cloud platform, but they don't have enough budgets and spend to spend on cloud engineering.
Yeah.
So those are the people who benefit quite a lot, where they have very well defined set of challenges that they're going through, because their developers keep telling them the issues that they have with cloud. So we could come in those discovery workshops, identify those, define those in bit more detail, give them the answers for how we might be able to solve them, and then go and deliver that outcome for them. And that, I think, works really well, because developers are really busy developing new features for their customers. And if our outcome comes in, then they get a very matured, streamlined cloud capability that they can just rely on and not worry too much about it.
Do your patterns, the patterns you've created and the templates you've created, do they optimize applications, or are you able to actually create applications with those patterns?
They optimize.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah. So they are like they go hand in hand. So you have developed an application and you need a CI/CD pipeline. So you could take our pattern for CI and pattern for CD and embed that into your application because those are tested patterns. So you just include them and run with it, and you don't have to kind of do trial and error yourself.
Yeah, because like people like Notion and a lot of other really popular SaaS products that startups are using nowadays. I saw Notion are working on their big data solutions, and then they plan to offer some stuff to their consumers later in this year. Maybe revealing my cloud integration naivety here for a second. If a startup with 10 people hasn't got much of a developer presence, but is using a tech stack made up of these different SaaS tools, are they already in the cloud? And is there an opportunity for them to optimize further by moving into cloud integration? Or does cloud integration only apply to companies who would keep the data otherwise in a big data room?
So I think there's a distinction to be had between typical SaaS tools and your own cloud setup. And I think what you're referring to is early stage startups who don't really want to set up their own thing in cloud, but they just want to get going with their product. So for them, there are already some SaaS products that they could benefit from, and I would recommend for them not to really bother setting their own cloud setup. But as you kind of grow in maturity in terms of your feature set, in terms of your platform, and if you have some internal engineering team, then I think there's a choice to be had to say, okay, instead of now relying on all of these SaaS tools, can I stand up something which is my own in my private cloud, and I can start managing it myself? Because there is that kind of a trigger point, if you like, where if you go beyond a certain threshold, though all of those combination of SaaS tools might not be as efficient and as cost effective.
Yes.
As opposed to you setting it all up on your own.
Because one of the things I can't get my head around is you talk about how a startup that's in growth, like we use Notion, and it's great, but it's of course the data you're conscious is in the servers of Notion or whoever they use for their cloud integration. If you then change to AWS or Microsoft Azure, aren't you just moving it from someone else's database to someone else's database? Even cloud configuration at the end of the day is always somebody else's database. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's right. But I think it's not just about your. So I think with Notion, that example is slightly. Maybe I'll give you another example. Is let's say you want to start selling some widgets that you're making, and you want to set up an e-commerce shop. If you're kind of in an early stage of the journey, you would use platform like Shopify. So Shopify would give you all the capabilities to do an e-commerce journey, and it is good enough. But now let's say that you have wanting to introduce more bespoke product line, you want to create your own content around your product, you want to create your own straight through journey where you integrate payments, you want to have your own branding. So the more you extend your e-commerce platform, Shopify would at some point become quite limiting, and you might not be able to do certain things in that platform. So at that point, you make a choice and say, okay, I move away from Shopify, and then I set up my own e-commerce platform, running my own front end, which has got my own branding and things like that.
So it's really the actual basis of a platform owned by and run by the company itself, as opposed to using other people's tools.
And as I think businesses grow, you have a natural switch over point where you think as a business you have grown, as a product line you have grown, and you want to create your own presence and not be limited by the limitations of these SaaS platforms. So
Yeah, because the thing is, when you talk about that, it's very real, because obviously we're not developers. I'm not in DevOps. I don't know what Kubernetes is, but I'm keenly aware of the fact that because I don't understand it, lots of other people must not understand it either. And so, as a growing startup, you don't understand those things, and cloud integration is intimidating. To create your own platform is intimidating. So I'm glad to see someone like yourselves is coming along with set templates and set patterns that make it a little bit less of an obstacle to get into it, because of course a DevOps engineer salary is huge for any upcoming startup, and so there is a barrier to entry into joining the cloud in that context. So that's what you help startups do if they are a startup. Great. Okay, Sachin, thank you very much for today. It has been fantastic talking with you.
Thank you very much as well, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. And
yeah, great.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Good luck in the years ahead. Well, hopefully we're going to see you next year.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait to book that in and see how this is all developed.